When you as a congregation hired me as your pastor, we both began a new chapter, a new journey, if you will, in the life of this congregation, a journey of an unknown path. The life of the church was no longer going to be the same. Together, we started moving down unknown paths. As a dear mentor in my own spiritual journey, the Reverend Dr. Rodney Romney would call our journey wilderness spirituality. Together, we as a faith community are moving into discernment, seeking ways in which to navigate our path toward fulfilling our future goals. During this time of Lent, there are a number of brave souls who are gathering via Zoom or in person to discuss how we will navigate and redefine our missional outreach as a body of faith. We are in a new day, a new awakening. As the prophet Isaiah shares these words given to him from God, "Look, I am creating entirely new heavens and a new earth. They will be so wonderful that no one will ever think about the old ones anymore. As you wait for the reality of what I am creating, be filled with joy and unending pleasures." I know that when I am speaking to you as a congregation, I am often focusing on the events and realities at the congregational level. But I am also aware that each of us go through our own wilderness journeys as well. One of my most dramatic wilderness journeys focused around my sexual orientation. As I was navigating through all sorts of events, situations, social stigmas, and re-education on human sexuality, both socially and religiously, I eventually began to understand who I am as a child of God. As I became aware of this understanding, I became more comfortable with myself, thereby allowing other people to become comfortable around me and vice versa. I had come through my wilderness journey with a broader understanding of who I was and my relationship with God and the world. As one of the last pieces of my particular journey, I began having a reoccurring dream. I dreamed that I had gone back to my hometown and found myself standing in front of the old courthouse of my childhood. I could see that nothing had been changed, but upon entering into this courthouse, there wasn't anything that existed from my childhood. Everything had been redone. It was a very bland 60s kind of look. So when I inquired with one of the personnel who was working there about what had happened, why this huge change, I was informed that there had been a major fire which gutted the entire building. And as the city was rebuilding the courthouse, the decision was made to incorporate the historical front facade as it was still standing. Now, these dreams were so real that I was compelled to call one of my aunts who still lived in the town and have her reassure me that there had been no fire and that the building standing was the original building of my childhood. Well, I was still unsettled enough that on my upcoming vacation, I planned a walking tour of that building as well as many of the old stores in that historic downtown area. I was very relieved to find that the original courthouse of my youth was indeed still intact. However, many of the other downtown stores had gone through some of that tacky 1970s remodeling using cheap dark paneling and lowering the 14-foot ceilings down to 8-foot high. Now, they did that as a way of helping to conserve energy, I realize. But nonetheless, the remodeling was not a very good aesthetically. As I assessed what this reoccurring dream was telling me, I realized that I needed to go back and reconnect my childhood with the person that I had come to understand myself to currently be. In a spiritual sense, I think of what Jesus was saying to his disciples after teaching the Sermon on the Mount. He says, "I did not come to destroy the laws of Moses, but to fulfill the writings of the prophet." For me, I had to reconcile who I had grown into with who I remembered prior to that particular wilderness journey. This is what we as individuals need to recognize for ourselves. That of reconciling our past with our present, so that we can move toward the future. This is what we as a community of faith must do as you and I journey together in our wilderness journey, that of reconnecting the past of this faith community with the present, so that we may continue to grow into who we are asking God to show us to be. I love how Isaiah relates God's quest for humanity in today's reading. "I revealed myself to those who didn't even ask to know me. Those who did not seek me found me. Day after day, I have graciously outstretched my hands, saying, 'Here I am, here I am. I will help you.'" We, as the incarnation of Christ, are to reveal to those who do not know or have experienced God's love this invitation of, "Here I am, I will help you." And then in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gives us markers in how to do this. What wealth is offered to you when you feel your spiritual poverty? What delight comes to you when you wait upon the Lord? What blessing comes to you when gentleness lives in you? How enriched you are when you crave righteousness. How satisfied you are when you demonstrate tender mercies. What bliss you experience when your heart is pure. How enriched you are when you bear the wounds of being persecuted for doing what is right. That comes from the Passion Translation. These words are not new to many of us. Over our lifetime, we have found comfort and reassurance from these Beatitudes. But we must learn how to make these words alive again in a new generation. We must somehow figure out how to incorporate our past experiences and language with what is current in our society, in a way in which these truths will speak to the people who have not found a way to be fed and nourished their inner spiritual spark. In last Wednesday evening's book study, we discovered 3 cornerstones of a vibrant community of faith: tradition, practice, and wisdom. The tradition of the early church was a voice of peace, justice, and embracing of the disenfranchised. Practice is based on Jesus' call for people to go out and do. Roll up your sleeves and do the work that needs to bring about justice and peace. And the third cornerstone is that of wisdom, which is taking an idea and working it out, understanding the results of those experiences. As we discuss and discern what our future as a spiritual community will look like, we need to ask with honesty some very hard, critical questions. Like, what is the character of God? For the character of God shapes our own character. What is the content of our faith? What is the function of our church? Are we just a social club or a spiritual center? And what is the purpose of our worship? What do we expect to receive when we come and worship? These are not easy questions to answer. The spiritual journey that Jesus made led him to the cross. Yet it was a journey that inspires us today. It inspires us because it is a journey that leads us to our own spiritual awareness in God. We are all on a wilderness journey. Our journey is one that is both private on one level, as well as in community on another. When asked to define what is church historian Diana Butler Bass says, "Church is a journey toward the possibilities of a relationship with people, a community, a tradition, a sacred space, and of course, God." Church is a journey within the mystery of God. As we work on reimagining the church, our church, one thing that I can assure you of as we wander through the wilderness journey of our lives, individually and corporately, there is one basic truth. No matter who you are a part of God's sacred conversation. As we gather in 1s and 3s and 10s and 15s, we are in the midst of having sacred conversation. Allow your soul that freedom, my friends, to go into this wilderness within inside of you and journey and find those sacred conversations with God. Go in peace and love as Jesus has shown us how to love. Amen.